Hi, everyone. Welcome to the Sitecore Strategy Webinar. We have three great speakers today, and before I dive into presenting them, I'm going to just go over a few items here. So we do have our 10th annual SUGCon coming up in Europe. It is at Croke Park Meetings and Event in Dublin, Ireland. You can buy those passes now. If you want more information, please reach out. Otherwise, everything is also on our website. So we hope to see you there for that. A few reminders, we have another strategy webinar, April 24th. It's going to be, there's time zones listed below. It's going to be 8 a.m. Singapore, 11 a.m. Sydney. I believe it is about 7 p.m. Eastern time as well. So that gives another region just some time to join and present and to listen to speakers from that area, which is going to be very exciting. We have 2 speakers already lined up, so excited for that. Some other upcoming webinars, May 29th and June 5th. So feel free to go ahead and submit a session for those. We are still taking speakers for those. Oh, and if you need to know how to submit, it's just smac@sitecore.com. All right, today's speakers, we have Jill, Mitch, and Jeroen, and they will be talking about various things from personalization and conversion rate to building a SaaS modernization business case and XM Forms Unleashed, talking about connect, send, and engage. And with that, I'm going to pass it off to Jill.
Awesome. Thanks, Krista. I'm going to share my screen. Give me 1 second. Okay. Can you see my screen? Slides.
Yes, you are good.
Heck yeah. All right, cool. Thanks for having me. I'm going to talk about conversion craziness, personalization, and conversion rate optimization with Sitecore. I think it's a good topic. Obviously, I picked it. But with the introduction of new functionality with Sitecore Personalize, the way that we help our clients strategize and think about personalization, I think we broaden the conversation. And so want to talk about kind of how we think about that, what tools are best, right, for kind of different strategies and approaches, being able to leverage what someone has, or if they're adopting it, new functionality, and just thinking about how we differentiate our hypotheses and things like that. For those of you that don't know me, I'm Jill Grozalsky Roberson, Senior Vice President of Marketing at Velir, which is an agency partner of Sitecore. I'm a 6-time strategy MVP, just got that back. Previously was at Sitecore before joining Velir for about 3 years. About 13 plus years in the space, love personalization, kind of built my career off of it, starting when I got trained in Sitecore 6.5 in the DMS. I have a really cute golden retriever named Lincoln. He's the best. Born in Boston, live in Charleston, currently in DC right now for a client. Probably more information than you were expecting to know about me. Okay. So to the meat of the topic. So when Sitecore, went through its acquisitions, expanded its portfolio, introduced kind of composability to the platforms, and announced Personalize back in 2022, a lot of questions, right, about the new products versus existing product functionality, kind of across the board, right, in terms of XP and with XM Cloud, things like that. And so some of the questions, and I'm sure these probably resonate with a lot of you that you might have either asked yourself or heard from clients. If I have Sitecore XP, why would I need Sitecore Personalize, right? Trying to figure out what the appropriate use case is there. Does Sitecore XM Cloud, do they have feature parity? Do I need Sitecore Personalized if I have XM Cloud? What's the difference and how do I personalize in each of these tools? And fundamentally, right, how do you plan for these things, right? If you're building a crawl, walk, run approach, and how does Sitecore Personalize allow me to tailor the experience on non-Sitecore sites? So when thinking about those questions, right, we kind of have 3 core players that we're talking about. We're talking about Sitecore XP, the on-prem DXP. We're talking about Sitecore Personalize, the standalone composable personalization engine, and Sitecore XM Cloud, right? So Sitecore is obviously cloud-based CMS that has personalization functionality within the tool. So in looking at each of these, just kind of breaking down some of the functionality, at least how I think about it, when thinking about conversion rates and personalization, what's the difference there, which we'll touch on after we look at some of this functionality. But I think everyone's obviously familiar, when I think about personalization within Sitecore XP, right? There's the opportunity to do in-session and cross-session, right? It does require XDB or an integrated data source for that cross-session if we're tracking someone's historical behaviors. It's rules-based. We're all familiar with the rule set editor in terms of being able to configure those conditions, working in a top-down manner. Obviously, we have our patterns for audiences, right? Being able to tag the content with profile cards and personalize based on that. And the way that we've been accustomed to personalizing within Sitecore XP is based on the individual components, right? Building a component within a page, making sure that it has a data source so that when we configure the rule in the rule set editor, we're saying, hey, if someone meets this criteria, right, show them this content versus the default or whatever it may be. That being said, Sitecore XP, if you're thinking about broad site personalization and kind of going component by component, it can be a little bit more time consuming than the ways we can personalize in some of the other tools. But it is really, again, that component-based personalization. So just kind of level setting there. Now with Sitecore Personalize, again, similar functionality and use cases in the sense that it's in session and cross session. It does not require that additional data source. You have your up to 90 days included in the license, but that can be extended, right, with an additional data source like CDP. So really perfect for building or crawl, walk, run, getting clients and organizations set up with some of those initial use cases, and then being able to mature, sorry, words are hard, when you integrate another data source, make those kind of personalization settings more complex. It is template based, right? So out of the box, getting these templates that you see, just a screenshot of some of them here. So where within XP, right, we're going into a page on a component, setting personalization that'll trigger. Here we're setting it up differently, right? We're leveraging a template. We're saying, hey, we're going to configure an audience. If we identify this audience, this template will be leveraged to then show the content. It is not necessarily tied to the page. It's tied to a trigger more so. The content component personalization does require some development work, at least in my experience. Happy to hear if others are having a different experience. So this is more of something that will introduce personalization kind of within the experience. So you see like an alert bar, right? Or something in the corner, a sidebar, something that maybe isn't built into the page necessarily. The behavior can trigger to show that new or tailored info regardless of the spot in the experience. And also there's decisioning functionality within Sitecore Personalized, things you don't get within Sitecore XP. Then lastly, our third players, Sitecore XM Cloud, again, ability for in-session and cross-session. Does not require an additional data source. You get up to 30 days, I believe, included in the license, again, but can be extended as you're layering on if you choose to use Sitecore Personalize to extend the functionality, right? There's what's in XM Cloud is not as robust as what's in Sitecore Personalize, but still a great starting point for a lot of clients. Here, when we're personalizing, the content personalization is done in Sitecore Pages, right? It's done at the page level. So what you're doing is you're creating a page variant, then you're customizing the components on that page, and then setting the triggering or the personalization will trigger to show the tailored page based on the personalization parameters. So as you see kind of within each of these tools, the way that we're personalizing is a little bit different. Ultimately, we're able to still achieve the same goals, but it's important to know, depending on what functionality you have, or if you're marrying some of these, the motions of how you do it are different. So kind of summarizing that, Sitecore XP, again, on-prem, kind of more component-based, does have testing, no additional data source. For in-session, it does, you require XDB, of course, for cross-session. Sitecore Personalized, SaaS, more template-based, as we saw, has testing and decisioning, and then Sitecore XM Cloud, more of that page-level personalization where we're creating the variants within a different page that can then be shown. So the reason I want to level set on that, because I think what's really happening is we're able to broaden our thought process as it comes to personalization, what we've really been able to do with these tools now is layer on an approach to conversion rate optimization, right? So what's the difference here? To me, personalization kind of sits under conversion rate optimization in a sense, but when we're talking about conversion rate optimization, it's really the systematic process of improving conversion rates across the board, right? We don't necessarily need to say, hey, you're part of this audience, we want to tailor something to you. We're developing hypotheses that are ultimately moving the needle on a conversion overall within an experience. And so this is really overall conversion focused. For personalization, this is where, I think we've all kind of come accustomed to playing in this arena, which is it's about the audience, right? We are customizing the user experience through tailored content, through different offers and messaging for individual users, right? We're saying, hey, Krista, I know that you've been to this site X number of times, you've consumed content that's related to this topic. I'm then going to try and change your specific behavior and your conversion by showing you tailored content. Again, where conversion rate optimization can be more for the masses. And it's something when we think about a crawl, walk, run approach, which again, I think we're all familiar with, conversion rate optimization is a really great entry point, and I think lowers the barrier to entry for organizations that want to focus on building up the personalization muscle, but it gives them a way to do that without having to create as many variations of content. Really, it allows time to build an understanding of audiences and personas and look at how at the data, and how people are behaving, what they're interacting with, so that we can progress to personalization. So when we think crawl, walk, run, maybe conversion rate is like, hey, we're just laying flat on the floor, but it's still a way to get started. Terrible analogy, just roll with it. So when we're thinking about, these two different approaches, and we'll touch on kind of how the tools support these, we're thinking about different hypotheses, right? Whenever we're going through and trying to optimize something, we want to, have a hypothesis. What are we trying to change? What are we changing? What's the expected impact? So for something like conversion rate optimization, our hypothesis is bigger, right? We're adding in a dynamic call to action, or this is an example. So for one of our clients, who is a hospital site and they have a foundation, one of the hypotheses that we're using with Sitecore Personalize for just general conversion rate optimization is, okay, if we add in a dynamic call to action for donations throughout the experience, kind of regardless of audience, we will drive the overall percentage increase, or we will increase the overall percentage of people who give and donate within their first 3 visits, right? So we're tracking some of their behavior. It's a lightweight audience definition. In Sitecore Personalize, we're able to use that template to then promote this, right? Measure against it, and see if that hypothesis is correct. For something that's more personalized, right? We're refining the audience. We're building that up more with more parameters. This is something where we would say, okay, tailoring homepage content for audience segments that have attended an event before will increase their sign up for a subsequent event, right? So we're taking into account more customer data in terms of what they're doing, then being able to tailor the call to action for that audience based on their behavior versus conversion rate optimization, which is, less parameters and more general. And so the different ways to deliver this with the tools that we've talked about, right? So with conversion rate optimization, here for this hypothesis, we're using Sitecore Personalize, right? So we can select the appropriate template. We'll determine what actions, kind of regardless of audience, will trigger this kind of call to action to show somewhere or wherever in the experience. And it's really the experience is tailored, not necessarily the content. And I think that's a big difference. If we wanted to do this within Sitecore XM Cloud, we could build a page, right, that has this donation form. We could create a variant of it. It would be a little bit of a different use case because it's not necessarily, popping that page up at multiple different points in the experience. The beauty of having this kind of more template and more template-based tailoring is that we can pop that up whenever the trigger or the audience trigger is met, or the criteria, I should say. Then, so for personalization in terms of how we're delivering, right, this is something that, in XP, the way that we've done it could be, on a component on a component where we're saying, okay, here's a rule. If someone meets that rule, we'll change this hero content, let's say, and promote something different. So here we would select the component on the page for personalization, set the rule to trigger content to swap on that component, map content within the component, and then personalization is only shown on the specific page where that's set. And so same thing with XM Cloud. So XM Cloud is, in my opinion, more for personalization than it would be for conversion rate optimization in general. But you would set it up again, because it's page-based, so we can create a variant of this page, set the audience parameters, tailor the content, and deliver it that way. So hopefully this makes sense. But really what I'm trying to highlight is that, again, there's ways for us to continue to drive actions and hypothesize about what's going to resonate best with audiences. Conversion rate optimization really does lower the barrier to entry in terms of not necessarily having to have really refined audience targets. We can still drive changes in action, but on a broader scale. Personalization really, within Sitecore, personalized, obviously is doable, but does have more of that like template based within the experience. And we want to leverage things like Sitecore XM Cloud or Sitecore XP for that kind of more content component level type of personalization. And those are things that we're working through with our clients as we're developing the strategies and really using conversion rate optimization to kickstart that process and building that operational muscle in-house to kind of get these things going. So I think I have one more slide. So using Sitecore to achieve peak optimization. I'm pretty sure I just kind of preempted this slide and touched on this. So from a conversion rate optimization standpoint, again, we talked about Sitecore personalized, being able to leverage that. I think it's also important to call out that testing is a component of conversion rate optimization. And I think that helps, again, to make testing more approachable. At least in my experience, people dive right into personalization, but sometimes are weary to test, which to me is kind of strange, right? I think A/B testing, you have a similar level of effort in terms of, hey, we need to kind of show some different content and get that created. But being able to leverage testing under the umbrella of conversion rate optimization, in my experience, has helped to kind of spark that conversation. So that can be done if someone has Sitecore personalized. If you want to start, again, building that muscle, if they're currently on XP, using the testing within that platform can help get there, and then roll into strategies that can then be executed with Sitecore personalized if that's added on. And then within XM Cloud, having A/B testing as well, similar approach, and being able to scale that from there under the umbrella of conversion rate optimization. Then with personalization, right, Sitecore XP, great way to do that from that content and component perspective. Within Sitecore XM Cloud, again, similar, you're able to achieve that similar functionality in terms of creating the page variant, setting personalized content to trigger or to show on that particular page, and doing that within XM Cloud. And then Sitecore personalized, out of the box with the templates, it's more of an experience personalization, still the ability to do it on that kind of content level, but that might be more of the walk just based on what's out of the box and what might require some additional work or development. That's all I've got. I said a lot of words. I hope some of them made sense, and I hope the content is relevant. I don't know if we do questions, Krista, but happy to take any. Maybe
yeah, so we're at 20 past the hour. I'm going to go to the next presenter, but I did open the Q&A. So if everyone can see my post there, please feel free to post questions. Jill, you can respond right in there. If we have time at the end, I know you have to leave halfway through, then you can also respond at the end, or we can just reach out and have you follow up with answers. And with that, I'm going to pass it over to Mitch.
Thank you, Krista, and thank you, Jill. Welcome, everyone. Just to kind of get us off the blocks here, today's conversation really is around helping develop a business case for SaaS modernization. inclusive of total cost of ownership and ROI metrics. Now, for today's discussion, we won't be diving deep into the actual calculations of TCO and ROI. We will talk about some of those metrics, and perhaps if I'm welcome back at a part 2, I'd be more than happy to do a deep dive on how we calculate TCO and ROI for developing a business case for SaaS modernization. In ways of quick introductions, my name is Mitch Talbot. I'm responsible for the revenue side of our business over at Horizontal Digital. We're one of Sitecore's global partners, platinum partners, been around for about 21 years in the ecosystem here. I'm a 6-year Sitecore MVP, and if you ever want to connect with me on LinkedIn, there's my deets, so feel free to hit me up. Real quick, kind of the level set of kind of why this is important. I think what I've observed here over the last few years is that organizations that are looking at modernizing their digital ecosystems are doing that in silos, and those silos create doubt within executive leadership of what is the value of some of these investments we're being asked to make. And so a lot of the techniques and tactics here you're seeing are in support of those customers to really understand what value they can extract from these investments, and more importantly, how do they start to move the needle forward in their business. So we're seeing a lot of organizations develop and evolve their strategies for composability. And over the last couple of years, we've heard a lot about Sitecore's vision for fully connected, composable MarTech that supports not only exceptional end-to-end customer experiences, but also seamless operations for organizations to really impact their bottom line. So we'll talk about tangible ideas to craft a business plan and how to calculate real impacts composability and SaaS modernization can make. And as I alluded to earlier, there's a TCO and an ROI dimension of this that we can touch on in a future session. So not that anybody really needs to be convinced that composability is important, but I really love this quote from Gartner. It was actually back in 2020 when this was cited. But Gartner emphasizes that now more than ever, customers are demanding a cohesive experiences as part of their end-to-end customer journey, and customers need to keep up. And as we say at Horizontal, you're only as good as your worst customer experience. We know today's experiences are complex, many systems working together to support many steps in the user's journey across marketing experiences, sales, service experiences, just to name a few. And so good news is today we're going to discuss how it's possible to create composable suite that only knocks it out of the park to keep ahead of the competition, but is fiscally smart for organizations that are making these investments. And so we know this is a journey, and it's easier said than done. The path to composable isn't necessarily a one-size-fits-all kind of approach. This process requires additional insights and an assessment of your organization's maturity, as well as where you'd like to be in the future. We like to think about it in terms of pragmatic progression. And really the starting point should begin with your company's goals and your customers' needs at the center of this plan. So if we look at what composable looks like, it looks very different for every company and where you're at in this journey. The journey isn't the same. And to help kind of gauge the depth of your need in the potential investments, it's helpful for organizations to really kind of self-identify which category they kind of fall into in this composable maturity model. So on the left, we have monolithic invested. This represents organizations that are heavily invested in the all-in-one CMS or DXP platforms like Sitecore's XP platform or Adobe AEM. This also represents customers that are finding value operating from their existing solution, leveraging the suite of included features, continuing to drive optimization and growth within their platform, like staying up to date with upgrades, things like that. In the middle, we have composable curious. We have these organizations that are leveraging the monolithic DXP, but support key integrations with other systems to drive end-to-end customer journey insights. These organizations are often seeking solutions to either address limitations of their all-in-one solution or looking for more robust, specialized capabilities. And then as we kind of look to the right here, we have the composable ready organizations, and these organizations have strategically defined a fully plotted out end-to-end customer journey and are aligning kind of the right features or packaged business capabilities to really activate along those customer journeys to deliver upon those experience expectations. So as we look at organizations' readiness, it really is a multidimensional kind of thinking we need to bring to the table, and it requires us to think a little more holistically about the needs of the organization. We often consult with organizations to help assess cross-functional imperatives that impact the end-to-end customer experience to identify what are the core areas of dependencies and shared responsibilities, and understand change impact not only to those on-stage customer experience moments, but the equally important backstage operations and day-to-day management of these systems and technology required to delight your customers. And so as you can see from this Venn diagram, I affectionately call kind of so what and who cares, it really helps illustrate a picture of shared ambition, but also dependencies and areas of opportunity for organizations to create alignment when embarking upon a composable strategy. And so if we take that a step deeper into building a business case, organizations really need to identify how a specific goal and introducing a new capability not only cross-cuts through their organization, but it needs to be thought through and how it ladders back up to an organization's KPIs or OKRs, while also addressing how success will be measured over time. We often like to look at things like, well, what is the impact to your team's current operations, and how will the new capability be adopted, and then more importantly, scaled if it's really working well for the business. And so the bottom line questions here that we need to answer are, what's the cost? And what kind of a return can we expect to see on some of these investments? And so, we are in a tricky economic conditions where organizations I talk to with regularly are getting pinched on kind of both sides of the equation from we need to reduce our OpEx while drive more top line performance. And so when presenting a business case to any C-suite to evaluate an investment request, you need to really address how the investment is going to support increasing revenue, reducing your overall cost picture, while also improving operational efficiency, not only for the near term, but the long term. And so the unfortunate reality here is most organizations we work with don't really have a business case that includes a picture of total cost of ownership or a realistic path to ROI, let alone the cross-functional or cross-departmental demands and imperatives that may impact other parts of the organization. And so if we look at what some of those common investment themes really are, it's really in these kind of four buckets. So organizations we're working with that are looking at SaaS modernization or increasing their composability, it really is around these kind of four core ambitions: agility and speed to market. Obviously, we know a lot of these all-in-one platforms come with quite a bit of overhead in terms of costly upgrades, ongoing maintenance, speed to market kind of hindrances with just complexity in operating these platforms. Then we've got freedom and flexibility. Often these all-in-one solutions are too complex to operate for a lot of organizations. And so even going back to like Jill's personalization example and XP personalization, when we look at patterns, content scoring, there's a lot of overhead that comes with the management of doing that at scale. And a lot of times the organizations we work with that are looking at these all-in-one solutions, they're not even touching some of those capabilities, so they're not really extracting the business value that they promise back to the business upon some of those initial early investments into those platforms. And so this composability is really allowing organizations to really kind of pick up the things they want when they want them and seamlessly integrate those into their ecosystem when they're ready. Creativity and innovation, obviously, when we look at the modern hybrid headless techniques and architectures, it really is empowering organizations to go speed to market in terms of updated designs, user experience moments that are going to be meaningful, where you're not having to do a full kind of rewrite or a full scale refactoring of your existing componentry and code base. It really is creating an environment for innovation. And then cost effectiveness, I think this goes without saying, but we'll jump into some of the aggregate stats and observations we're seeing in the marketplace here in a moment. But the cost effectiveness, when we look at scaling back and scaling into SaaS modern solutions today, there's a lot of overhead that just kind of goes away with that. Now, it does create, those costs don't necessarily go away holistically, but those costs tend to shift and incrementally decrease over time. So a big thing, though, and I like Shark Tank in a sense where they always press on knowing your numbers. I think one of the biggest observations I've had in working with about 5 dozen organizations here over the last 6 months and crafting a business case and developing TCOs is not many organizations really understand their holistic picture of cost. So for example, somebody that may own the website domain for their organization probably has a good sense of what they're spending in terms of licensing, what their staff costs could be. But if there's a reliance on cross-departmental things like hosting or security, things like that, some of those costs become a lot more fuzzy, or they just completely unaware of what those cost structures are. So it's really important for organization to understand what is their current baseline. And I think a lot of that goes into, helping organizations understand not only the people and the tooling cost side, but the operational costs that go along with that to really complete a holistic view of your cost picture. That surprisingly takes a little bit of time with organizations to really understand and go through kind of where do they find that information? Who do they talk to within their organization to get those numbers, to develop this more holistic view? But I think that's good for starting the conversation cross silos and cross teams, is to say, hey, here's what we're thinking about doing. The impacts we're looking to make touch all of our departments, help us create an understanding of what our current spend is today. So I'm going to jump into a quick use case here. And this use case is genericized, but based on real customer data. And I think it's just interesting to understand kind of the journey this customer's been on and kind of where they're going. For the sake of this audience and kind of privacy to the customer, we've omitted certain things and genericized some other things, but it should give you a pretty good picture of use case and what some of these outcomes could look like. So the use case we're going to be talking about here in a brief moment is a manufacturing organization that's global. They have 2 distinct channels, both B2B and direct-to-consumer audiences that they support. They are a house of brands organization, 7 individual brand names under one kind of master brand. And their digital footprint is unique. It's got 8 unique digital site experiences supporting globalized content and various buying experiences, but it's also a very heavily trafficked site where they get about 1 million visits per month. And 6 million individual unique pieces of content to support their different product lines and different geographies across the globe. Additionally, they support over 5 million multi-channel assets, including images, documents, things of that nature around their products, things like that. So What I'm omitting here, and this is kind of the part 2 of our discussion, would be how we calculated out the total cost of ownership. I'm going to fast forward to the results. So this organization shifted from kind of a legacy all-in-one solution into Sitecore's XM Cloud modern SaaS solution, leveraging a lot of kind of new features with personalized CDP, search, and XM Cloud all together. Really, when we did the benchmarks, looking at their existing spend, we saw a 46% reduction in total annual spend, a 95% reduction in upgrade costs. So as we all know, SaaS offers things like no more kind of back-end upgrades, which is great for organizations. And when you look at managing that total expense across their organization, now 95% reduction, you'd say, why isn't it 100%? There's other parts of their ecosystem that do still require front-end updates, things like that. A big portion of their savings came in the reduction of management costs. And so these are what I'd call more lower value workloads. So managing server infrastructure, managing the, keeping the lights on activity around the application tier, things like that, which is important work, but a lot of times it's not very value added back to the business. Often those expenses are put in an OpEx bucket. So when we can show OpEx savings, it's not like those people resources or services that they're procuring through other organizations go away. We can look at how do we redeploy some of those valuable people assets back into the organization to drive innovation back to the business. And there's some ROI modeling we've done around what that innovation can drive for the organization in terms of top line revenue. And then we're also seeing a 38% increase in speed to market on product content and content at scale. This is a great stat because a lot of their content operations and content marketers' pain points were working in the complexity of an all-in-one solution coupled with a legacy PIM platform, coupled with a third-party DAM platform. Getting content correct and out to the right channel was very cumbersome. And so we streamlined a lot of those processes and saw these real benefits. But if we extrapolate this over, the 5 or so dozen clients that I've personally worked with and had an opportunity to create varying TCO models for, this is kind of what we're seeing in the market kind of at scale. So in aggregate, about a 83% reduction in deployment costs. So think of things like little tweaks and features that dev teams would have to build. Now with a lot of the pages and component interface and the ability to drive your own componentry without IT intervention is creating faster time to market and deployment cycles, along with the SaaS nature of typical deployments, cuts that down quite a bit. In aggregate, a 27% reduction in overall technology costs. A large part of this is that server hosting costs that kind of go away in a SaaS world. The 35% increase in content speed to market, again, kind of piggybacking on the previous case that we talked about. This is what we're seeing at an aggregate level. And then the 62% in shifting from managing to innovating. And again, this is, in my opinion, the secret sauce for a lot of organizations, that they're spending a lot of time operating, not innovating. And so freeing up those important people resources to really drive the business forward. And then we can start to really circulate this picture of how are we going to make money, save money, and really increase our operational efficiency. So that's the end of my presentation today, but really appreciate the team's time, attendance today. Again, part 2 of this is how you calculate the things to create a total cost of ownership and ROI model. And with that, back to you, Krista.
Awesome. Thank you so much. That was great. Again, if anyone has questions, please feel free to post them in the Q&A section. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to Jeroen.
Yes, let me share my screen. You should see my first slide.
Yes, good to go.
Yeah. Okay, well, my presentation is, let's see, goes to the next slide. Well, it's always goes something wrong. Let's try again. Yeah. This one. Why isn't it working? Let's try again.
Yeah, we could just see a black, we saw the screen and
Yeah.
then it went to a black screen.
Let's try again. Share my screen and start the presentation. And it's not working. Well, let's. Okay, it's at the end.
It did work for a second.
Yeah. I know what's wrong. So let's try again. Yeah. So now it should work. So yeah, this presentation is about. It's called XM Forms Unleashed. And what I would like to discuss in this presentation is recently we had a client which I think is quite typical for a lot of customers that are thinking about moving to XM Cloud, but yeah, they run into some business problems, and this case is about how we solve those problems. So let me first start by introducing myself. My name is Jeroen Huizinga. Now a 2 times MVP, strategy MVP. Been working with Sitecore for a very long time, started in 2007. So earlier I heard Jill mention the DMS. I started with the OMS, so the predecessor to the DMS. And over all these years, I've been part of a lot of migrations. So I think I can give some insights in how it's been to move clients over from XP to XM Cloud. Work at Axby, and since we're new to the SMAC webinars, we're located in the Netherlands, and well, we consist of a small team, but with a lot of expertise. So currently we have 4 different MVPs within our team. So as I mentioned, this is a typical client that started on XP and was thinking of moving over to a headless implementation. So we started building headless within XP. However, during the project, we came to the conclusion, well, why take the halfway step if we want to move further into XM Cloud? So why not don't we skip the headless one and go directly into XM Cloud? Well, there are a lot of webinars and presentations about all the benefits of using XM Cloud. But one thing that it tends to be overlooked are all the marketing functionality that are in XP. So when we did analysis and we looked at, even though they said, well, we don't really use XP, all the bells and whistles, marketing functionality within the platform, we identified some key points that we had to find a solution for. So first off, with the analytics, this client is very privacy sensitive. So they used to use Google Analytics. However, they deemed it not suitable for their business. So they just decided to move over to use the Sitecore Analytics within XP as their main analytics platform. Next up, we had a lot of forms within the website. And within XP, there was Sitecore Forms, which met all their needs. And they use a little bit of personalization, so some basic personalization rules like personalizing for mobile based on either first-time visitor or returning visitor, and a little bit of profiling. And they also used EXM for all their email needs and automation. So when we're looking at moving over to XM Cloud, those were some of the main problems from a marketing perspective we had to solve. Well, luckily, they were already looking at a new analytics system. In this case, they chose Peeweek. My colleague is now working on the integration, but small tease for a talk maybe later this year. The second part, for the forms, we thought we found a solution in using Sitecore Send, because it also has a form builder. And for the personalization rules they have, well, even though in XM Cloud, it's a sort of the best of personalization rules that were available in XP, we thought that was, well, a nice match on what they actually use. And finally, for their email and automation, Sitecore Send was the solution we chose. However, when we dove a little bit deeper into the forms functionality within Send, we quickly found out it wasn't a complete match. Well, luckily, we just found out there was an early access program, and well, thanks to Krista, we were able to become part of that one. And we saw that was XM Forms would be our solution to fill the gap we had with the forms. However, there were some small things missing, but luckily the team were able to implement it before the final release. One of those were, for instance, the option to have hidden fields. And why is this so important? My goal with implementing XM Forms within the website was to make it as easy for the content editor as possible. So we just wanted to have them add a form to the page and don't have to mess with any webhooks and make sure that those are tied to the rest of the system. So we came up with a solution where we simply create a form and everything is sent via one webhook. And during this presentation, I want to explain a little bit more how we solved the backend problem. But it also made it possible to, within the forms, to create some fields where we could put in the name of the form and also the recipient of the email or the email once the form was filled out. Well, the missing piece to this puzzle was Sitecore Connect. Because one of the downsides we had if we just used Sitecore Forms was that we weren't able to send an email to the owner organization. So if you use Sitecore Send and Sitecore Forms, you can send a thank you message, for instance, to the person who filled out the form, but you also want to have that information maybe sent to you as an email. So the flow we came up with, first, the visitor lands on the XM Cloud, fills out a form. The data is sent to connect via a webhook. An email is being sent to the organization with all the information that's being filled out by the visitor. A user is created within Sitecore Send. That one is added to a list. And via an automation plan, we can determine who gets what message based on which form they filled out. Well, if we have a quick look at how Sitecore Forms, where the XM Forms works. So for those who haven't seen it yet, it's located underneath the tools. And there we have a new Forms tab, and it works quite easily. So this is the demo environment. So it's quite barren, but if we create a simple test page, it's quite intuitive. So put in a section, and within those sections, you can add the different fields like an email, maybe a name, and so on. And one of the nice additions is that now it's if you want to use certain styles, you can also save those sections and edit in this way. So this is also what we used for this client. After the submission, there is all the data sent via a webhook, and we use this functionality to have all the forms point to one webhook and have all the intelligence being built in Connect. So if I go back to my presentation, and I'll show you how this works. So the data is being sent to Connect via the webhook. Here we can add multiple steps. So first we create a user within Sitecore Send. But one thing we found out, we wanted to make certain fields mandatory, like whether there's an ID present. So the ID is the name of the form that's being filled out, which company they are, and so on. And we had to make a decision tree because certain forms don't have those fields, and then the automation plan wouldn't work. So we added all our mandatory fields like this. And all these fields are tied to a contact, and we had to add some custom fields to this contact, and those are being filled once the visitor submits the form. And the real magic happens at the end. So when we get the data, because we use all the forms, use one webhook. We defined all the possible fields. I think there were something like 40 or 50 different fields. And based on whether this field has been filled out, we use it within a template that being sent to the organization. And the template looks something like this. So here we have all the different fields, and the organization only receives the fields that are actually being filled out. And this makes it very flexible. So now the content editor can create a lot of different forms with all the fields we have defined, and only the fields that they actually use will be sent to the own organization. And if we have a look at how that looks in Connect, then it looks something like this. And Connect is very easy to use. So it looks a little bit complicated, but when you add the plus sign, you can add, for instance, an action within the app. Well, one of the advantages of using Sitecore Connect over other solutions like Zapier is that there are some out-of-the-box applications already in there. So like Sitecore Send, and there we can map the data to the custom fields we have created. See, I'm short on time, so let me go back to the presentation. So what are one of the benefits we have using it in this way? Well, it's really easy for end users. So as I said, they simply create a form. Since it's integrated within XM Cloud, they simply drag and drop the form on the page they want the form to be housed, and that's it. The workflow is quite transparent, so we know every step. And because we use Connect, we also get insight in how many forms are actually being submitted. And also, which is really important, is when there are errors. So when certain submissions fail, we get an early warning saying, okay, there's something wrong with this form. Please fix it now. And well, another advantage of using this way, it's completely composable. So in the first talk, they also talked about personalize and CDP. Well, because the budgets didn't allow it, we made it quite nimble. But in the future, we could extend these workflows with even more products within the Sitecore suite. So in conclusion, it was a really fun project, and I think it's just the basis of a lot of interesting things we're going to do in the future. So I think I stayed within the time. So this was my presentation. And
that was excellent. Thank you. And if there's any questions on forms or what Jeroen just went over, please feel free to put it in the Q&A. If more come in after, then we can certainly reach out. I know how to get a hold of you, Jeroen, and do any follow-up questions, Q&As. All right, awesome. And if I don't see any questions coming in, so if there isn't, we can give everyone a few minutes back of their day, maybe get some coffee before you either end your day or go on lunch break, depending on where you're from. Thanks again to our speakers.